Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock of the Emerald Planet and Emerald Planet TV. We come to you on a week-to-week basis from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technology, services, and products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we have a planet of 9 billion people by 2038 and possibly 12 to 13 billion by the end of this century, how are we going to be able to take care of all these people on planet Earth? And that's what Emerald Planet's all about. We come to you looking at the solutions, the best practices from around the globe as we create the Emerald Planet. Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet. We're making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And seeing the long-term impacts of climate change. We're glad to have you. Thank you for being with us.
We're looking at the continent of Africa. Africa on the move. Africa now has over 1 billion people, maybe 2 billion within the next 2 decades. It has one of the youngest population bases on planet Earth, and also it's developing at a very rapid rate. And we have a young lady that's been very much involved on the continent and has created a program called African Titans. And we're going to be talking about that over the next few minutes. Kimberly Fogg, she is founder and CEO of Global Sustainable Partnerships, but she's also the chair of the Women's Program Engagement Council. And Kimberly, welcome back to the Emerald Planet TV.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Sam. It's such an honor to be here with you, and I really appreciate you always looking out for me and for Global Sustainable Partnerships. I really appreciate you.
Well, I'd like you to go ahead and talk about your Global Sustainable Partnerships, and then I'm going to ask you about WPEC, which is a new organization, and it's the first time it's been introduced on the Emerald Planet TV. But go back to your GSP. What is that?
Our Global Sustainable Partnerships is an initiative. It's called Water is the Lifeline of Life, and we provide access to clean water to children in our primary and secondary schools, our orphanages, our households, our health dispensaries, and we're in one regional hospital. And one of the reasons that this is so important is because our children were just dying at an alarming rate of contaminated water. So we wanted to make sure that we were able to give them access to clean water. And now our kids, their grades have gone up. We've won 2 sanitation and environmental awards for our Merrill District schools. The kids are just doing extremely well because they're not sitting around with bugs in their stomachs anymore because of the access of clean water.
That's absolutely fantastic. Now, the WPEC, this is new. Tell us a little bit about that. And as soon as we finish with that, let's really get into the heart of this as what is African Titans.
Well, the Women's Program Engagement Council came about. I was invited to the African Trade and Global Summit back in 2018 in Washington, D.C. And I was a vendor talking to people about our global sustainable partnerships and trying to provide access to clean water for other communities throughout Africa. And it was bringing together a bunch of investors so that they could come and look at the different projects throughout the continent to see if there was an opportunity for them to invest in certain projects. Well, I noticed that there weren't any women that were invited to be a part of the conversation with the bankers and the investors. And I went to the CEO and I said that, you really missed a great opportunity because the women on the continent are really doing great things, and they need to have access to the bankers and the investors because they are the small, medium enterprises that are actually creating jobs within the country. And we wanted to make sure that they had opportunities to have a global presence. So that's how WAPAC came about. And so he says, well, we're going to have another conference in 2021. Can you do it? And I said, okay. And hence the Women's Program Engagement Council was created.
That's absolutely fantastic. Now, looking at the map, this is really is a new movement as far as having Africa as the center of these maps. Usually it's just, one side or the other. But why is it so important that Africa now shows up in the center of world maps and it really belongs there and has its rightful place?
Well, Africa really is the new emerging market, and there are so many economic opportunities within Africa because of all of the resources, all of the brain power, and now that people are looking at Africa as more of a global economy, people are starting to focus on that because there are new opportunities to go in and partner with businesses that are already created and investors going in there to create new opportunities. So
Yeah,
I think that's
and
why.
then an interesting part about this is the discussion is Africa now is actually properly sized vis-a-vis the other continents, and this is something came out through the satellite studies, and that had been undersized for such a long time. So Africa really is taking its place, its rightful place as far as the world economy with the environment and also civil engagement. But it's a very diverse continent. There's 54 different nations. And so Africa is not a country and Africa is not a state. It really is its own continent.
Absolutely. And 54 distinct different cultures, different languages. It's amazing.
Yeah, and it's really it fits together perfectly with all the natural resources and the new energy from all this young population that's being made throughout the whole continent. But African Titans, women transforming a continent, and you have the extra label on that from within. What are African Titans?
African Titans are the women that are emerging, that are like they're ambassadors now, they're members of parliament. We have two women presidents. For so long, women in Africa were viewed as victims of violence and not being able to work, unemployed. But there's an emerging new wonderful women who are now leaders, they're on boards. And that's the story that we're trying to tell. And we wanted to make sure that we also wanted to, the world to know that you have to look at women through a different lens because it's no longer the same. And so this is really turning into a documentary series. And we want to be able to showcase the women who have maybe grown up in a village and now, for example, our ambassador from Namibia, she was a child soldier, and now she is one of the ambassadors. She's a Namibian ambassador to the United States. So, you've got all of these emerging stories that are absolutely wonderful, but they're never told because they're stuck in Africa. And so we are actually giving these women a platform so that they can have a global voice.
Okay,
And
that's absolutely fantastic.
yeah,
Now, looking at
absolutely.
Africa Rising, what does that really mean and the importance of it?
Well, it really means that all of Africa, like you said, there's 54 separate countries. They all have their very unique resources. And now the world is looking at them and companies are going in and trying to partner with them. So it's not just one region anymore. It's the whole continent is and their economies are growing.
Yeah, that's absolutely. And also, too, as far as the economics, this is something that's been a dramatic shift over the last 20 or 30 years. The importance of Africa as markets to sell into and also to source from. So, what are you
Absolutely.
seeing as far as the dynamics of the economy across the African continent?
Well, I think that in bankers and investors and just businesses are just looking at the people in Africa are not all poor people. There's poor people around the world. These are people who are potential clients and customers. And I think that they finally realize that, oh my gosh, these people are doing amazing work and they're growing their businesses. They're putting money back into the local economy. So they're starting to say, oh my gosh, well, maybe we need to capture that. And I think that's happening.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. And when you see, vibrant cities like this are popping up, I shouldn't say popping up, they've been evolving over a long period of time. But the world is just now starting to take notice as far as the dynamic, as far as the economy, the environment, and civil society development. So, what are these youth cities actually telling the world about the African continent?
Well, first of all, everybody always thought that Africa was so far away that nobody actually really ventured to go to these different countries to really see, what's going on. And so now that the world has become smaller because we have become a global community, people are now going into these countries and saying, oh my gosh, not only are they just these beautiful, amazing communities, but they are emerging markets and there's opportunities there. And part of what WAPEC is showing the world how beautiful Africa is and the opportunities that are available there and what we can do with partnering with people in the United States.
Now, looking at this notion of stories, why are stories so important? And I prefer the term narrative. There's really an emerging narrative about the dynamics and the importance of Africa as we move through the 21st century. But why are the stories, the narratives of these African titans, the women, so important in the 21st century?
Well, first of all, women in these communities have not had the opportunity to have their own voice. Everybody's always spoken for them. Men have always spoken for the women. And so we wanted to make sure that because we consider ourselves mentors for the next generation, that we give our young girls and our young boys the opportunity to hear about the stories of these women who may have grown up in a village, but now they are, like I said, they're on boards, they're now members of parliament, 2 presidents, they're attorneys, they're doctors. We wanted to make sure that these women are telling their stories in their own voices. Who better to tell your story than the person who has lived it, right? Mm-hmm. And we just believe that that's just a wonderful gift to give to our kids because it really allows them to say, oh my gosh, just because where you started doesn't mean where you're going to end up.
Yeah, they're looking at the images of these African titans, and we're running out of time, but I tell you, it's just incredible to see the dynamics, the energy that they have, but also the diversity. I'm going to leave this up for just a second. What does this image, this picture tell us about the diversity and the new energy on the African continent?
It just shows how women are. Women always work together. So for us, we don't ever think that there was a divide. Maybe other people thought that there was a divide, but women have always come together because we always wanted to make sure that we created the best opportunities for our families and our communities. So for me and for most of the women who I work with, and they're amazing, we're used to being in these environments with women from all over the world and from throughout the continent. So this is not new to us.
Now, looking at this, and we're going to go out on this and one other image, but the dynamics of this photograph here, you can feel the energy, you see the power, you understand that there's a huge amount of investment here. So what do you see for African Titans and your movement as far as the Women's Program Engagement Council over the next 5, 10, and 15 years? We have to be quick.
We're going to be the women. We are going to be making sure that women are a part of this new emerging markets, that they will have a piece of the pie, that investors will look at them with a new lens and will start investing in women and investing in their businesses and making sure that they're not being left behind, that they are actually moving ahead and they're helping create better and healthier and more educated communities.
This is Kimberly Fogg, founder, CEO of Global Sustainable Partnerships. Thank you for being with us as we create the Emerald Planet.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sam. Really appreciate it.